She was in the hospice for 2 weeks, and we were there every single day, and we held her hand until her last breath. And welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, I'm Ashley. So I thought I would film this video today. Obviously, you know by the title, it is going to be another story time video. And this time I'm going to be talking about the reason or the circumstances behind us moving from our home in Los Angeles to our home now in Las Vegas. We lived in Los Angeles, me and my husband, for our whole lives, obviously separately when we were born. We've both lived in the greater Los Angeles area pretty much our whole entire life. We moved from Los Angeles to Las Vegas in 2014. And basically our circumstances before this was my husband was working full-time. I was working full-time. As a nurse, he worked at the same hospital as me when we met. And then I got another job somewhere else. Anyway, long story short, we both had full-time jobs in LA. That's pretty much the norm. If you're lower middle class, you are both working and your kids are either in daycare or with, a family member. Luckily, when we only had William, he was being taken care of by my mother-in-law. So we were very lucky in the aspect that we didn't have to leave our child in daycare. Not that it's a bad thing to leave your kid in daycare, but I'm just saying, we got lucky because my mother-in-law was able to take care of my son. So when I got pregnant with Aaron, we just didn't want to have to not be with our kids when they're growing up. I mean, me, obviously my husband's gonna have to work, one of us has to work, but I started realizing that I really wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but in order for that to even be plausible, we would not be able to stay in LA. So we kind of shopped around options of moving to the Riverside area, which is a little more cheap, which is a little more cost effective than living where we were living. We were living closer to LA. We just were shopping around. I mean, there was nice houses in Victorville, but the crime rate and all that. Anyway, so we shopped around with different ideas of moving. And also during the time that I found out that I was pregnant with Aaron, my grandmother found out 1 month after I found out I was pregnant that she had cancer. And we'd already been dealing with a lot with her because she had Alzheimer's as well. Not too horrible, not so horrible that she had to be in a nursing home or anything, but she was still living with my grandfather, and I was doing a lot of the taking care of her. I was working full time, and then after work I would drive to their house, which was about 30 minutes from our house, after driving an hour from my work, so it was a big commute. And then I would go and I would shower her and take care of her, because I was pretty much the only person that she wanted kind of near her at that time, because she had Alzheimer's, number one, and number two, she was in a lot of pain from her cancer. So it was a lot. So basically my entire pregnancy with Aaron I spent taking care of my grandma, which obviously it wasn't planned because we didn't know she had cancer. She just had Alzheimer's at that time, so it was kind of a big whirlwind. Also at that time we had been talking to my grandfather about possibly moving. Now at this time I was living with my husband, obviously, in an apartment, and we were paying a lot for this very small apartment. And my grandfather has been living in this area in Los Angeles for his whole career and adult life. Basically where I grew up, because my grandparents raised me. They're like my parents. So he was thinking about selling his house and moving somewhere, downsizing. And at first he was like, well, maybe I'm gonna have to sell my house, and then we're gonna have to go into a nursing home with your grandmother. And basically he was thinking like that. And I was telling him, you know what, we are so happy, or at least William, when he was little, he loved my grandpa and my grandma as well, but really loved my grandpa. And so when we were going over there every day, we were going over to eat dinner with them, and then I would take care of my grandma, and my grandpa would spend so much time with my son, and he loved him. They were best friends. We have video of William saying Papa, 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 cute videos. He loved my grandpa. So we basically approached my grandpa and we were like, you know what? we would love to live with you guys. You know what? You have this big old house and you're all alone, and my grandpa was starting to get pretty like, I don't want to say like depressed, but he was really like anxious and depressed because of what he was going through with my grandma. My grandma was like my mom. So like the whole illness and her getting sick and passing away was huge for me. It was like my mom passing away, and it was horrible. But basically like that for 3 or 4 years, we were dealing with my grandma losing her memory and her personality changing completely. And my grandpa was still living alone with her, and we were like kind of in and out like almost every day. So he at least had like some, you know, human interaction, but for the most part, he spent his day talking to my grandma, who was slowly like losing her mind. Her personality changed completely. She was not even the same person. She was very angry, and he tried to get a nurse, but she wouldn't let them do anything. Like I was the only one she would let like touch her, basically. Like she even like hit a nurse, and if you knew my grandma, like that was like the opposite of something that she would do. So he was starting to get really anxious and depressed and having trouble sleeping, and he basically was like, yeah, we really should all move like somewhere else. It was starting to get really expensive for him to live in that house. Like the bills were ridiculous. He still had a mortgage on the house, even though he had lived there for like so many years because he had to refinance. So it was a very small mortgage, but it was still like something that he was paying every month, and he was just ready to be done like with that house. It needed a lot of repairs that we couldn't do. And it was just, it's so expensive to live in LA. If you live in LA or you know anything about LA, LA is just an expensive place. The gas, the food, everything is just expensive. So it was, we came to a mutual decision that we were going to move to Las Vegas, basically. That was the first place we looked into, and my grandpa loves Vegas. Like 99% of the time he was going to Vegas on vacation. So he, or me, I don't remember who brought it up first, but we were like, why don't we look and see how much house prices are in Vegas? And looking online, we were like, whoa, they're so cheap. Because comparatively, like if you spent what we spent on this house in Los Angeles, you couldn't even buy a 2-bedroom shack. Like it was that big of a difference. So we started to look into it. We didn't really start seriously until after my grandmother passed away. She basically had cancer my entire pregnancy up until I was 8 months pregnant, and then she just suddenly stopped eating, and it was extremely traumatizing for all of us. And it was really hard on all of us. She stopped eating, and we had to put her in a hospice, and we didn't want to put a feeding tube or anything like out of, you know, like the natural progress of things, basically. My grandma was like gung-ho about never wanting to be put on a ventilator or put on a feeding tube. She never wanted to be kept alive artificially. That's the same as my grandpa. They were both in the medical field. I am in the medical field. Alex is in the medical field. Our whole family is like knows like what it's like to be on feeding tubes and ventilators and having tubes everywhere, and just none of us are into that. So not all of us like have an advanced directive that if anything happens to us, then we don't want anything to be put in us artificially to keep us alive if there's no hope, basically. So my grandma stopped eating, which is traumatizing, and then we put her in a hospice. Thank God we found that hospice. I mean, everything happened the way it had to happen, and we were very thankful for the way that she passed. She was in the hospice for 2 weeks, and we were there every single day, and we held her hand until her last breath, and we were thankful for that whole process. And so after that happened, I was 8 months pregnant. I was about to give birth. It was stressful. All of it was so stressful. So after that happened, we basically spent 1.5 to 2 months recovering until I gave birth to Aaron a month later. She died on December 1st, and Aaron was born on January 28th of the next year. And basically that whole time we just spent trying to recover. We moved out of our apartment in with my grandpa because he was really like lonely. And we already knew we were gonna try and make this big move to Vegas. We packed up all of our stuff. We moved in with my grandpa, and then 1 month later, I gave birth, and we decided basically from after Aaron was born probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks after he was born. I think he was a month old. We came to Vegas, we started looking for houses, and the rest is history. We found a house. We ended up moving in March or April, and we have been here ever since, and we are super happy here. Like, things could not have gone better in timing wise. Like, everything just worked out the way it should have worked out. My grandfather lives with us. He lives in the first floor. There's like a little like area for him. He has his room and his bathroom, and then obviously we have a kitchen and a living room in our house. And we found a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house with like all of the things that we needed in it, and we just never looked back. We still have family in LA, and we still go to LA pretty frequently. I mean, it's not even that big of a difference for us, because Alex basically has the same kind of shifts that he was having over there. He was working 3 12 hours there. He got a job right away here at a hospital, and he works 3 12 hours and sometimes in the 4th day. And so he's home a lot with us, and we're just super happy with our decision. And it was basically the best move and all of us could have made, because basically we got this house, and now we don't have a payment. My grandpa doesn't have to worry about paying the bills because we pay the bills. And like, it's just a great situation, and just worked out great. And we're super happy and thankful for it. So yeah, that's the reason we moved from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. So yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them down below. And if you have any ideas for another story time video that you guys are interested in, I will make that video, whatever you want to know about me or us or whatever. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks. Bye guys. I don't want to go back to work, but if I have to, I have to. I mean, it probably would ease up the pressure on Allie